Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to today's second half. Hope everyone's still doing well. Before we get into today's second half, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, my merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe and click the like button. It's fast and free. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's second half. Shall we? Today's first terrifying experience in the woods. I go hunting in southern Illinois on property that my family owns. The place is my second home. I've spent countless hours exploring all around every inch of it. I've caught all of the fish in the area, hunted every legal game, and spotted the rest. So, when I say that I've never had an experience like this, just remember that this was my domain that I felt comfortable in any weather, at any time, with any equipment or lack thereof. 2 deer seasons ago, I pulled into the farm at probably 4:40 in the morning, November. So at least 2 hours till sunlight. I pull my stuff out of the truck and walk to the woods. I have my shotgun and a revolver/knife on my belt, an elbow light clipped to the front of me, my thermos of coffee, a backpack with a book, and a couple of other things for cleaning my deer should I get lucky. So I walk off the drive and into the woods. The tree stand that I'm going to is less than a mile away, but through some dense second-growth forest, and down a rather steep hill across some bottoms, then a lung-burning steep climb up another ridge. I've always dreaded this hike, but it's a good spot, so I often do it. I make my way down to the bottom, slush through the icy muck, and get to climbing. With my flashlight clipped to my chest, I keep needing to physically turn my body to throw the beam around and see trees that I recognize to determine my path. This, of course, always gives the forest a horror movie vibe, even on the best of days. The leaves and underbrush are encased in frost, so every one of my steps comes with a solid crunch, no matter how quiet I'm trying to be. This time, though, I noticed that there was more noise than usual. Something else was crunching close by as well. I walk about a quarter of the way up the hill, listening to my company the whole time, seeming to stay the same distance away as I moved. Naturally, I think to myself that I'm going to have a quick day of hunting. So I plop down next to a tree. Can't shoot till first light, but I'm hoping if I stay real still, that whatever I'm hearing will lounge around until then. So I click my flashlight off, unsling my shotgun, and lay it over my knees to wait. Except I don't hear anything now. Whatever it was must have been spooked by my flashlight spinning all around as I sat. I still stayed a bit, sipping some coffee to make sure, but gave up after 15 minutes or so of dead silence from the forest floor. I probably didn't even make it 4 steps before the second moving thing starts up again. At this point, I'm still not freaked out. I stay facing the way I am and flip the light off again and sidestep behind a tree. Sure enough, I don't hear anything. 2 minutes of sitting there frustrated before I start moving again, and my new friend does as well. This is when I started to get freaked out, because I worked my way up the hill, stopping to turn and look every so often. When I stopped, the sound would go on for just an infinitesimally longer amount of time than my own steps, like something seeing me stop and doing its very best to stop before I heard it. This happened no less than 4 times, and by now I'm sweating bullets and freezing cold because, well, I'm sweating bullets in the middle of winter. I abandoned my thermos near a tree so I could hold my flashlight and my revolver at the same time. The last 100 feet or so to my stand was done backwards so that I could be facing the noise and, in theory, keep it from moving. I didn't hear crap again after that. Got up into my stand and smoked like 5 cigarettes in a row. It gave me a sense of security being up in the tree behind camouflage. Still, I only hunted for like an hour of daylight and went back early. And I wasn't moving slow heading back to the truck, even with the sun shining bright. I've not told my family about this because, well, they wouldn't believe me anyway, but damn, it was freaky. The sound, and when it decided to happen, felt very human, which it likely was as poachers and trespassers occasionally wander onto our property. Still, ever since then, when I go hunting, I'm much better about letting people know where I'm going, and for how long. Today's second terrifying experience in the woods. This took place during winter break my freshman year of college, well over a decade ago now. My friend and I decided to head to a rifle range we had frequented previous during high school. It had been about 10 months since we were last there. This is in northeastern USA. The rifle range is outdoors, unmanned, and on state game land. You never know who may be there. I'd encountered some strange, possibly sinister kids there in the past, a fair amount of normal people as well. We parked the truck and I immediately noticed skinned rabbits. Dozens of them. They were obscure at first because of the grass, now dead in winter, had grown so tall. Falling over and cradling these neatly arranged rows of skinned small animals, possibly rabbit, raccoon, it disturbed me how hard it is to tell what something is once its skin has been removed. It disturbed me that someone would lay a new carcass right next to an old one. Each neat pile was in a different state of decay. Despite our better judgment, my friend and I decided to enter the rifle range. I grabbed my 2 rifle cases, like plastic guitar cases. This will come in later play. The rifle range is a large bunker cut into a taller hill. It extends 1,000 feet, and the walls on the left are about 40 to 80 feet tall. There is a question mark-shaped path leading around the bunker into the gallery, where you stand or sit to shoot. Not sure the proper terminology. Approaching the trail, I noticed a dead deer off to the left of the trail, then another off to the right. Then another further down in the center of the trail, decomposing, a large hole in its abdomen filled with maggots. There's another that's all maggots inside from the bones. I had never seen anything like this before. My friend and I carry on in front of me. My friend and I carry on, me in front. Once we round the corner in the gallery area, there are 2 or 3 dead deer, like a deflated deer balloon on the gravel. Almost nothing left of them, 2-dimensional. This is when it really sets in how dilapidated the place has become. Everything is overgrown. Even looking downrange, the grass had nearly covered the whole area up to 2 or 3 feet, except for the trail in the center leading toward the back of the bunker. Along this path there is 1 dead deer every 50 or so feet on the side of the trail. The number of deer carcass I have seen is now outrageous, over 20 of them. It felt beyond belief. About 500 feet downrange, there's a pack of dog, maybe 8 to 10, an almost ridiculous-looking number all circled around the deer eating it. I'm standing right at the front of this path. I turn back, and my friend's face is pale at this horrifying sight. Like a complete dumbass, I say, WTF. Immediately, one of the dog's ears perks up. It picks up its head and looks right at me. Like it's in slow motion, it lets out a quick bark. The whole circle of them, in a carousel, lift their heads one by one and lock their eyes on me. I glance back at my friend. He's already running, probably has 20-foot lead. I look back downrange and see the dogs are already charging me. They already look twice as close. I start running as hard as I possibly can with these 2 guitar cases holding 2 rifles in each. I can't do a full sprint holding these things. I'm debating dropping them to run faster. I found the corner out around the bunker entrance, looked back and saw they're already in the gallery, skidding on the gravel to the square of the corner. 8 to 10 of the most mangy-looking hellhounds coming for me. I'm hoofing it as hard as I can. It's now roughly straight shot to my friend's pickup. I glance quickly back, and they're singular feet behind me. I'm not going to outrun them. I think about dropping the cases. I glance again over my right shoulder and see something forever burned into my memory. A dog in mid-air leaping at me, fangs out, hopelessly close to me now. I'm still in full sprint, looking forward again, waiting to feel this thing's jaws sinking into my calf or thigh. Total temporal distortion. Time slowed down. I thought of how I had just seen a show on the History Channel. An old man, World War II vet who had survived a mountain lion attack. He said that if a rabid dog attacks you, raise your forearm in front of your throat. They'll latch onto it and won't let go. I'm waiting for this to happen. Getting knocked down, I envision when one gets into my leg, rolling onto my back, throwing my arm up to catch one going for my throat, and being torn to pieces by the other 7. I realize this could be how it ends. Astonished, being mauled to death. It felt like someone pushed me forward, giving me a burst of speed forward, then another, almost causing me to fall forward. Then I realized the dogs were smacking off the big guitar cases hanging at my side, each time pushing me forward. This happened 5 or 6 times, and just then I crossed in front of the truck. I throw my gun cases on the hood, open the door, and hop in. My friend is already in the driver's seat. The dogs are gone. I'm feeling like I had just escaped death from a horror movie, expecting to hear some words of relief for my fate. My friend instead calls me an idiot for leaving the guns on the hood. I guess he wants to shoot at them. I tell him, go screw yourself. I'm not getting out of this truck. I almost died right in front of you. Eventually, he gets out, gets a rifle from the case on the hood, loads it, and climbs up on the side of the bunker. He says they're gone. I quickly scamper up, confirm, then insist we leave. On the way home, I see a local cop at the gas station. It's inside its municipality. I'm telling him about the range and what had just happened as briefly as possible, how it's a danger, etc. He seems to get more aggravated the longer I talk, so I stop. There's an awkward silence, and he coldly says, "Yeah, it's really bad out there." From his tone and body language, I can tell this exchange is over. He goes back to his conversation with the cashier. I just turn around and leave without saying any more. I still wonder what the heck I walked into. What if I had dropped those gun cases? Why was someone dumping their illegally skinned carcasses at the rifle range on state game land? What killed all of those deers? The place was fairly well maintained for 2 to 3 years, and we'd been there inside the last year. Where were those dogs, wolves, coyotes? Why was the cop so dismissive? Probably the easiest one to answer. The range is now gone. There's a natural gas oil well there. I don't really know any much more about this. Edit to add, I was in immediate physical danger, which seems to go against anything. But I survived. I later learned a girl was murdered just outside of Range 2 decades earlier. Today's third terrifying experience. My friends and I are on our way from Chicago back to our home in Evansville, Indiana. As such, we had to drive through Midwest to get there. Pitch black highways surrounded by trees and cornfields. About 4 hours away from home, my friend screams, and I look up. We had a deer going 50. The poor guy bounces off the front end and is probably dead upon impact. We come to a stop and commiserate, call our parents, etc. We're stranded on a quiet highway in the middle of nowhere, trees to our right and a few houses a bit far off to our left, all surrounded by cornfield. My friend is standing outside surveying the damage when we hear a scream. A man's scream a bit far off and to the left. My other friend and I look at each other wide-eyed. A few minutes pass and we hear one again. I make a joke about Skinwalker and my friend gets back in the car. A bit later, after calling 911, we hear another scream, a woman this time, and it seems closer. We are waiting on the deputy and nervously joking about whether it's a skinwalker or a crazy elderly person with sundowners. A la The Visit, and my friend faces the tree suddenly, laughs nervously, and rolls up the window. I just heard clicking noises outside my window, and I'm rolling it up because I'm not going to pretend that I didn't just hear them. Anyway, now we're back on our way. The car is drivable and out of Skinwalker country or whatever it was. Just something really strange happened, and I just needed to get it off my chest. Today's fourth terrifying experience. This happened in Manitoba. For some background, I'm 23. I've lived in the country all my life, growing up on the east side of Lake Winnipeg, and moving to the west side as a teenager. This took place when I was 17 and is definitely not fiction. A few years after my family moved, I started dating my boyfriend at the time. I lived within a small town, but my boyfriend lived 15 minutes out, surrounded by woods. His only neighbor was about a mile down. Yes, I'm using miles because country roads here are done in mile sections, not kilometers. On a September night, I was at his house watching movies and whatnot. I wanted to go out for a cigarette around 2 a.m. He said he didn't want one, but for some reason I felt scared to go outside myself, probably because I was really tired and kind of out of it, so I made him come with me. We go out onto the front deck in the dark. He's looking at his phone. I'm smoking, enjoying the fall crisp air. Then I hear this very distant cry come from the direction of his neighbor's home. It sounded kind of like it could have been a dog or a coyote. I asked my boyfriend what he thought it was, to which he replied he thought it was the neighbor's dog. We were both leaning against the house listening to it, and we noticed it was slowly getting louder, like it was getting closer. Then it changed in pitch tone dramatically and became guttural. It sounded like some kind of human screeching for their life, but it definitely was not human. The type of scream that immediately makes you feel sick to your stomach and terrified. My blood turned to ice, the back of my neck prickling, and we both just froze. Staring at each other, looking around, looking back at each other, repeat, but our feet wouldn't move and our mouths would not open. I don't think I can even fully explain how this sounded. Again, I've lived in the country all my life. It didn't sound like a dog, fox, coyote, cougar, bear. No wildlife I've ever heard of could have made that sound. I know cougar, coyote, fox can sound like people, but I know firsthand what those calls sound like. We listened to this awful sound getting closer and louder for probably 2 minutes before my boyfriend grabbed my arm and rushed me inside. We never lock our doors where I'm from, but, damn it, did we lock every door and window in that house. We jumped into bed freaking out, trying to make sense of what the heck we just heard, and we could still somewhat hear it from where we were. We laid there silent for about 10 minutes, and then the screeching just stopped. Obviously, we didn't sleep that much. The next day, we drove past the neighbor's house, and the dog was fine. Just chilling in the driveway. Nothing was out of ordinary. And it never happened again. We broke up early the next summer. But boy, this still freaks me out to this day. Lots of strange things involving the woods have happened to me growing up, but this one is stuck in my head forever. Tonight's final experience. This was around 1999. I was living in a very rural upstate New York. If you don't know or have never been to the Catskills, it's a small town after small town surrounded by forest and farmland. Not much to do back then but hang out with your friends and drive around. At least that's what I did with my friends, besides the weekly house party. My best friend and I were very into the paranormal back then, and we both experienced a few of unexplained things. And being in our late teens, young adults, we were curious. We both identified as Wiccan at the time and spent a lot of time in those woods. We would meditate, do earthly spells, have lunch, and camp out, so needless to say, we were not afraid of the woods, the dark, or being completely isolated in the middle of nowhere. One night, on one of our late winter drives to nowhere, because, like I said, nothing else to do, we ended up on a road where we hadn't been before and pulled off to the side of where this old schoolhouse was. We parked the car, got out, and looked in the windows to check it out and see what was inside. It appeared to be kept up as a historical site, as there were old desks inside and an old chalkboard. It was really neat. But we did have that creepy feeling that you get at places where it seems the veil is thin. So, of course, we returned there several times after. We were just drawn to this place. A few times we went during the day with some other girlfriends to check it out. As we took a walk in the woods behind the schoolhouse, we all felt this odd feeling. The only way we can describe it was like what I've heard as walking through a fairy circle. The ambient lighting around us felt different. I can't really describe it other than almost as a vivid color experience around us as the sun came through the trees. We didn't think we were there all that long, maybe an hour or so, but when we returned to the car, several hours had passed. It was now maybe 5 or 6. We had been there at noon. One time my best friend and I went there at night. We were sitting in the car just talking, drinking our gas station bought cappuccino, purchased on our night drive. We kept hearing this tap, tap, tap sound out loud. I said, "Knock it off," to nothing that was there. Right as I say this, we hear what we can only describe as child's feet running away from behind to the side of the car. It freaked us both out, and we got out of there. There was no way anyone was there. Like I said, this is a rural main road to the dirt road pull-off. Completely pitch black, no street lights, no cars going in the distance or anything. If someone did show up, they would have been walking in the dark for miles to get there, and it certainly wouldn't be what sounded like a child running around the car. Kind of sad when I think of it now. I certainly hope it wasn't the roaming spirit of a child gone too soon from this place. Anyway, this is where the freakiest part happens. And we never did return to the old schoolhouse after this. As we're getting back onto the main road, there's these headlights. We could see something scurrying across the road quickly. It looked like a hairless, naked human crawling low to the ground, elbows bent high so that its belly was close to the road, and its knees looked like they were bent backwards. I remember us both turning to each other and panicked looks in our faces, saying, "What?" And then, "WTF, did you see that?" We drove home, kind of trembling and not saying much. I remember I kept looking in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see this thing chasing us down the road. Luckily, we did not. Me and my friend are still besties to this day, and we sometimes talk about these series of events. Years later, we saw the movie The Descent, and it immediately made both of us think of the old schoolhouse and the thing that we saw run across the road that night. It was a freaky place. Experience and time. Also exciting and slightly terrifying. I now live across the country, far away from New York, but I often wonder about that old schoolhouse in those woods. Someday, I think I'd like to return, now that I'm older and in a different place in my life. I would like to still see if it's there. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight's second half. With that, I want to thank you all for tuning in and thank you for your support. May the Great Spirit watch over us all, and may He guide us down that path that we call life.